back to order, and we will move into North Dakota Housing Finance Agency.
Are we in the right
Or,
meeting?
no, Industrial Commission. Land Board's next week.
Had me worried.
Well, I'm the chair. I guess I can start. I told these guys this morning, obviously it's, there's been some articles written about it, but I have a really talented staff and I'm very proud of them 99.9% of the time. They, however, apparently forgot their coloring skills from grade school, and in a very specific line item veto, with which our letter was perfectly clear, we inadvertently made the mistake, which is on us in our office, and did the whole section. So we are talking to everybody we can, from legislative council to our lawyers to everybody, to figure out if there is a legal way in which we can solve this without calling them back into a special session and costing taxpayer dollars. However, if that is the only alternative, that will be exactly what I am doing, because we are not getting rid of the housing finance fund. And so I know that this is probably a pretty good crowd to hear that.
Yeah,
You have my full-throated personal support of the program. You have the legislature supports the program. The fact that we made a mistake in my office does not in any way reflect on anybody around here, and more along the lines of, I'm assuming it won't be the last mistake we make as governor, but we are going to do everything in our power to correct it in the most appropriate way. So,
appreciate it. That's all you can do.
oh, I can yell a little bit. I'm over that.
That's between you and your staff.
I twirl up and twirl down. I was twirled up yesterday. Let's just say that. So,
Twirl up and twirl down. I can't identify with that. Equanimity at all times.
With that rosy news, we'll move into consideration of approval of the recommended first home program income limits.
Yeah, so that's me. So once a year, we get new income acquisition lists. This is for our tax exempt bonds. So obviously they're tax exempt, so the IRS has some regulations on them. So once a year, IRS and HUD publish new income limits. This is where we can change our income limits. So this year, North Dakota increased about 8% compared to national average, went up about 6.5%. The new limits that they allow for this year are 112,200 up to 135,930. However, we are looking to make a change to manage program volume and preserve some of our resources. So we're actually revising the range to 93,500 to 110,000, which is actually lower than where we are currently. So we're dropping on average, about 10% across the board.
And is that because it'll be utilized fully at those numbers?
Yes, part of that is to, and Kayla kind of talked to this too, some of it's with our bond cap and some other things. We've just been the last couple of years just been going completely crazy. So some of it is staffing issue, trying to keep up on our acquisition side, and then on our servicing side, that portfolio just continues to grow. So we're trying to ebb the flow a little bit there. And then the other part of it is the last couple of years, our rates have been so low. There's been probably a lot of individuals that qualify as first-time homebuyers, but probably don't need to be using our program with the lower interest rate. So this is really trying to focus on those that actually need to use our program and focus on those. And then we're also going to try to make our North Dakota Roots program, which is a repeat buyer program, a little bit more robust. So if they don't fit in the first bucket, they should fit in the second bucket. This is kind of to reflect that. Kayla has any?
Yeah, what you said was good. I'd say that last year for mortgage revenue bonds, we did 550 million. If we go back historically, the agency usually would do about 250 million. So our interest rate being so low comparatively to the secondary market is just really driving our activity. And we kind of have to tame it down a little bit to conserve volume cap, because as I'm sure you're aware, we don't get just 400 million or 500 million every year. It's an allocation that you approve as the governor. So, but we get a lot. So, but we're doing our best to try and conserve and make sure that we have the first time home buyer program available going forward. So I think that's kind of our plan, and that's why we're trying to cut things back a little bit and really target those people that we think really need the assistance.
I move setting the program limits to 93,550 as a max for a family less than 3, and for a family with 3 or more, 110,000.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Thank you, guys. Recommendation first home program. Or
It's just-
It's the report.
It's the acquisition limits. Yeah, so we can also change your acquisition limits as well. Really your loan amount is driven by your income limit. So as we're reducing that income limit, there's not really a need to increase our acquisition limit. So we're going to leave this, been the same since 2023. And it's $481,176. We can thank the IRS for such a nice round number. This year it went up to about 544, which again, it's just way too high. If you have 110,000, you can't get to that limit. So we're okay leaving those limits. Just basically a briefing to you. There's nothing to approve yet.
perfect. Resolution regarding first home program purchase price and income limits, authorizing officers.
Yeah, so in light of improving the income limits and stuff this year, we also want to try and make it a little easier on you if you agree. So what the resolution is looking for is that you would designate officers of the agency, so executive director, CFO, and home ownership program director, with approval of the housing advisory board, which is lenders, realtors, builders, et cetera. That with that, you're giving us the authority to make these type of changes that are just programmatic and typically occur once a year. So just to take that off the plate, it's kind of like a red tape reduction.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General.
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
I think you could tell these two have gone through this work.
Yes.
So something off your plate.
I mean, this is a micro niche issue. We're going to rely on you guys anyway. Like I have skill sets. This isn't it.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have the advisory boards.
So I think the next thing is our pricing on the 25 A and B bonds that we just issued actually, or priced last week, Wednesday, actually. So for 2025 A, that's our tax exempt mortgage revenue bonds. We did 200 million. We ended up at a yield of about 4.756. So where that puts us on an interest rate for buyers, for our weighted average rate, we're at about 6.17, and the lowest rate offered is 5.75. Currently, we're about 50 basis points to 1% below the secondary market on that program. And since it's our first home program, that's for our first time home buyers and things like that. To date, we have about 75 million in reservations already allocated to that 200 million. So you can see we're busy with that first home program. We also priced 60 million of our 2025 B series, which is our taxable bonds. That's for the Roots program, which Brandon mentioned previously. It's for our people that are moving up, buying their second home or they're refinancing. So we had 60 million. That ended up at 6.01. Our weighted average rate on that is about 7.5. So again, that probably won't last too long, but we're hopeful that that will be the option for people that no longer have first home. So overall, with the volatile market that we've had lately, we're happy with the pricing and hopefully it gets us through the end of the year. But we'll see. That's the hope. But if not, I'll be back. So that's what I have.
Questions?
Okay. Next up, legislative recap. Governor, you stole all the thunder on that one.
Yeah.
A couple other things.
By the way, I don't want to trivialize it. Like it's a big deal, but we're going to fix it.
Exactly. So other things though, besides the housing incentive fund, the legislature approved 5 FTEs for us. Governor, you had 3 in your recommendations, but we went over your head and asked for the other 2 that we originally were looking for. And really that is primarily based on the home ownership and the amount of business we've been doing. And we were going by metrics that the National Mortgage Bankers Association has. We are like 3 FTEs short on the home ownership side. And we're just adding 2 to that. And, it's more flexibility than anything else. If we need them, we can hire them. And we'll see what happens with the reduction in the income limits, what effect that has, what effect the market has. So we'll see, but it gives us that flexibility, which we're looking for. And then we also added, because that also puts a strain on accounting, we added a bond account for that. Part of that is succession planning also for, we have somebody who's probably going to retire in 2 years that has been with us for 25 years, and she does very complicated accounting, which is not your normal debits and credits. So we need to have somebody sit with her for at least a year, if not two, to get through everything that they do there. And then we also were approved for the homeless grant for a homeless program manager. So anyway, so we have that flexibility, which we're glad the legislature agreed with us on that. And then with the housing incentive fund, once we get that gets corrected, we'll have the money for that. Our plan is to have for the regular housing incentive fund is we're going to set aside $5 million for single family, and the rest would go towards multifamily gap filling. And that the single family was approved last legislative session, and we targeted that at rural communities, 20,000 or less, or community land trusts that are in Fargo, Grand Forks, and Minot. So far, there have been 4 homes that have been completed and sold, 2 in Lakota and 2 in Larimore. And they sold before they were done. The transaction in one transaction in Lakota churned the market where somebody moved up or downsized, and that opened up their home for somebody, a new person to buy in the same town and stay in Lakota, which then opened up another unit for rental. One in Larimore that apparently the one sale then caused 4 more transactions to occur. And what that's doing is helping create appraisal comparable market in those rural communities also. And that is there's a regional development council out of Grafton that is working these homes. They currently have projects planned for, I believe, Park River, Grafton. We have Devils Lake, JDA, City of Hatton, and Trail County JDA. They're all going to be they're in the midst of working and planning for their projects.
They've done a lot of cool work up there with the Park River, Grafton, Minto area.
Yep.
They've really gotten after it.
Yeah. So it's working how we wanted to see it work, where it's kind of, moving the market in those rural communities, and they're certainly showing the demand for it. Fortunate they were able to find a builder who is absolutely sold on this idea. It's from Fordville, and he's building these homes in Lakota and Larimore. And he was building custom homes, and he said building 2 homes at a time is like building 1 custom home. So it's good for him, and he really feels good about helping the community sell. So that's been successful. And then obviously with the regular HIF for multifamily, we were 46 million oversubscribed for our demand from last year on the program or the last biennium. So we feel that 25 million will go out the door pretty quickly. And we share your lost opportunity with the program. That didn't get through. I think that would have been a great help for especially a rural community where we saw that they could use that. So otherwise, the HIF program I think will get used quickly, and we'll be able to show that demand next session also.
Yeah, when you have new programs, sometimes it takes you 2 sessions to get them. We'll keep going.
Yeah.
Any questions, guys?
No.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So next up, we have a consideration of approval of the reappointment of 2 Housing Finance Agency Advisory Board members. Under 54-17-07.1, the Industrial Commission is responsible for appointing a 6-member advisory board. We have Mr. Joe Sheehan. He is a branch manager at Benchmark Mortgage. So he is in the lender category of the various members of the advisory board. And then Mr. Kevin Hansen, he's the CEO of Gate City Bank, also in the lender category. Their current terms expire on July 1st, and they are both very interested in continuing to serve. And so we are bringing that recommendation to you for their reappointments for an additional 3-year term each.
I move Mr. Hanson and Mr. Sheehan as to be reappointed for advisory board.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
and we also have some other business to attend to.
You do.
practice in front of a mirror this morning.
Did you? Wow. Thank you. Was that important?
It is important,
Okay.
and I mean that seriously.
Okay.
Thank you for your service, and thank you, and I wish you well in your retirement. Get that handicap down.
I will.
And we have a
You're
resol-
right.
resolution of appreciation. Whereas Dave Floor began his career at North Dakota Housing Finance Agency in 1984, serving as Director of Home Ownership for 14 years, and on May 1st, 2020, was promoted to the Executive Director. And whereas Dave's commitment, compassion, and leadership have fostered collaborations that have helped thousands of individuals and families across North Dakota achieve the dream of homeownership. And whereas through Dave's guidance, NDHFA works to increase housing opportunities and remove affordability barriers for North Dakota's vulnerable residents. And whereas Dave's integrity, humility, and dedication have earned the respect and admiration of colleagues, housing partners, and community leaders. And whereas Dave continually leads by example and through an unmatched sense of humor that will be greatly missed at NDHFA team members. And whereas the Minnesota Vikings have provided Dave a lifetime of character building, patience testing, and hope sprinkled Sundays, and every day going forward will be filled with joy, relaxation, laughter, and just the right amount of yelling at the TV during football season. Now, therefore, the Industrial Commission hereby expresses its deepest gratitude to Dave Floor for his over 41 years of dedicated service to the North Dakota Housing Finance Agency and the citizens of North Dakota, and wishes him the very best in his retirement. Adopted this 22nd day of May, 2025.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, back on the Twins have 2 World Series victories. That's what I go with. So that covers up the Vikings.
There you
A
go.
little bit.
You gonna get a picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Been here a long time. Seems like, since yesterday, yeah, that seems like 20 years, 2 decades. But,
Congratulations to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody move this way. And then step away from the wall a little bit. There you go. Right here. Awesome.
Okay. Thank you all.
All right.
Okay.
I know.
Thank you.
Longest win streak in team history for the Twins. Wasn't that in team history?
91, there was 50 in a row. Was it? Wow.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
No. I'm like, I was so young.
Thanks.
Got rain, right? Lots of it.
yeah.
It's a great
I
life.
got one daughter coming along.
Too much, too little, just right about. There's something to complain about, right?
Big sister.
Sorry, I hate to do it.
It's just great life and taking care of
Yeah. That's what I told her. She's well, that's alumni. Cult. It's a cult.
I read this and I fell asleep.
Which took you how long? You opened the cover or
12
did?
minutes.
Thank-
It's good news though.
Okay, yes, it is. It is very good. She should.
Rock and roll.
She had her auditor start off, so.
Do we move into other business till she gets here? or- Oh, she is here. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah, is that my cue?
Hey, Angela, you're up.
Hello. All right. Well, if you're ready for me, I am Angela Guptill. I'm a manager with Brady Martz and Associates. Our firm performed the audit of North Dakota Public Finance Authority for the year ended December 31 of 2024. As part of our audit, we follow auditing standards generally accepted in the United States, We also follow government auditing standards and the uniform guidance when conducting our audit. If you happen to have the audit report in front of you, you can flip to page 58, which is the schedule of findings and question costs. This page best highlights the audit results and gives a pretty good summary of the important pieces. So first up, we expressed an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the highest and best opinion we can issue on the financial statements, and means that they are materially in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. The report is also included for the audit being conducted in accordance with government auditing standards. Again, Public Finance Authority received an unmodified opinion, and there weren't any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted. We performed a single audit over the federal awards of the Finance Authority. This is just the compliance part of the audit. This year, we tested the Clean Water Program, and that also received an unmodified opinion, which means that the agency is complying with federal requirements for the Clean Water Program. As far as the financial activity for the Public Finance Authority in 2024, Deanne would be able to tell you more specifics, but just the big items that we noticed happened this year was that a new SRF bond was issued for $229 million. And the Finance Authority does also include the legacy bond program, but there weren't any substantial changes noted in that program during this year. Lastly, there is a letter on page 59 at the back of the financial reporting package. This just includes items that we're required to communicate with those that are charged with governance. There aren't any issues to note here. We just need to make you aware that that letter is in there. Finally, I would like to thank Deanne and her staff for another successful year in completing the audit. Audits are typically a heavy lift for the people being audited as well. So just want to show some appreciation for their work. But those are all the notes that I have. Are there any questions for me?
No, thank you.
Unmodified is a compliment you can.
Oh, dang, I didn't get the second part of that. What did you say after unmodified?
Just asked if unmodified is the best compliment you can give.
Yes, as an auditor, it is.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right.
As an attorney, you must appreciate that.
Yeah, at least it's not an LY word. All right, presentation of annual report. Yeah.
All right. I'll try to be brief on that as well. Our capital financing program, we'll start on page 2. That is generally our oldest program. It's a market rate program, which has not seen a whole lot of activity, being it is market rate, and the Bank and Roads Infrastructure Revolving Fund program kind of has filled in the gap since that time, and we did not issue any bonds under that program in 2024. But with them having limited amount of money, we'll see what that changes in 2025. We also, under that program, have used it for disasters in the past, but again, thankfully, really didn't have to use that at all in 2024. So we can just kind of skip over that. And then on to page 5, where the State Revolving Fund program begins. That is our most active program that you guys hear about just about every month from me. As Angela indicated, we did issue bonds under that program. The Clean Water Program, that there were 14 loans that you would have heard about from the PFA last year for a total of $105.8 million that were approved. That was our second highest in program history. 112 million were approved in 2015. So far this year, we're at 42 million. The drinking water program last year, there were $46 million of loans approved. We're already tied for that this year. It's a $35 million lead service line loan approval to the city of Fargo. On page 6, we show the bonds approved, or the bonds that are outstanding under both programs. Over the life of both SRF programs, there have been $969 million of bonds issued. So we're close to that billion-dollar mark, and we've refunded $283 million of those bonds for savings purposes. The total amount outstanding at the end of the year was $381 million. Out of that bond issue that we did do in 2024, 150 million of that was brand new money, and then the balance was to refund bond issues. We do have a small industrial development bond program, has a little bit outstanding. Let's see, what is that dollar amount on that? Either I lost my sticky or the sticky note for it, but there's just one bond outstanding on that program. It hasn't been a real popular program, again, market rate. And then the legacy bond infrastructure program, and that was for those projects that were approved in the 2021 legislative session. And there are $652.6 million of bonds outstanding, and those payments of those bonds come from the legacy fund earnings that are transferred into the legacy fund sinking and interest fund at the beginning of the triennium. So that second transfer will be happening on July 1st. I need to answer that email to get that all set up. And then really after that is every loan we've ever made has to be reported every year. So that's all
a
those
cool list.
attachments. Yep. Yep.
Like it,
You can look at every city and then we show the amount that was approved, and if it's still outstanding, you can see the outstanding balance. So if you would like to fall asleep like the Ag Commissioner, go ahead and read those attachments, and if you have questions, feel free to reach out and we can answer those questions on all of those loans if you like. Any questions on any of that information?
I've started to read the forward and go to the last 2 pages, and it's always got the same ending.
I need to find a twist to put into this amazing
No, please
information.
don't.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the audit
Sure.
report in not having any findings ever so far. So we want to keep,
Yeah.
we don't want that twist to change at all.
Good report.
Well, doesn't look like anybody has any questions about those documents. So then the
talk
city-
about West Fargo.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of exciting because they have not used our SRF program since like the first 10 loans we ever did in the SRF program. And they're talking to the month. They're here to borrow $6.1 million from the Clean Water Program to do a replacement project in one of the additions in the city. And this will obviously be for the sanitary sewer portion, but they're doing a whole sanitary sewer, water main, street, sidewalks, the whole thing. And they've requested a 30-year loan term, and their average annual payment will be $258,000. And they will issue improvement bonds payable with special assessments. And based on that information, the advisory committee recommended approval of this loan.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
And then we had 6 loans that were under the $2 million mark that were approved by the advisory committee, including the drinking water portion of the loan that you just approved for the city of West Fargo. If you have any questions on any of those loans, I'd be happy to answer them. Sure, Flasher, and they're all quite large metropolises that
Is being a rival against my kid's school, is that a reason to vote against them?
well, these are already approved by the advisory committee.
You can't vote. You don't get a vote.
They already got approved.
What kind of a commission is this?
You gotta go talk, you got the advisory committee.
Guess we gotta remove them.
Yeah, Brenda, you should have headed this off. You're a Shiloh grad.
I know. It never splashes, not it.
They think so.
Thank you.
I love that the school rivalries come up at IC. That's great. I'll have to remember
Well,
that.
now the class changed. Classes changed. They're not even in the same.
Yeah, I barely even care anymore. I'll do it for half what they want.
Again, you don't get a vote.
So I have the same vote power I had when I voted for the whole thing.
Yep.
Sounds like the legislative session.
Which brings us to the very last item.
Ta-da.
Great segue. And it ended pretty much like every report that I had for the most part. 2014 was, I don't even think I have oh yeah, that is a late sign date. It is still May, isn't it? I'm ready for June and heat and sunshine. Most everything that we had requested was approved. 1537, which was the territorial protection that was signed and was agreed upon by League of Cities, North Dakota Rural Water, and the PFA. So no issues there. 1577, which was the wastewater grants. That is a shall study with some grants for Pheasantton and for the city of Lincoln. We are working with the city of Pheasantton and had a phone call with the city of Lincoln. So working on getting their projects up and running.
So the last I'd heard about Fessenden is the bid came in way high.
They had one bid. They had an approved clean water loan for $2 million, the $2 million from the grant, and it was $2 million over. So they're $2 million that they need to figure out how they're going to do that, which I do believe they could come in for a loan increase to the SRF loan. It won't be fun for the city, but I think it's definitely doable. The rates that they currently charge on their utilities are unreasonable. They also do have city sales tax, and of course, special assessing would be another possibility.
This was brick funding from that kind of went away at the end. And we were lucky enough to be in session when it happened because it was the community resilience program through FEMA, which I didn't like the program. That doesn't change the fact that this money was approved. And I thought it was a perfect example of a federal agency getting way outside of what they were originally supposed to do. But it was the two we care about in here were Lincoln and Fessenden. But then we funded at what the feds were going to fund at, and then they get this bid and it's 2 million over. So we're still trying to figure it out. And they're ready to go now. Like they're ready.
That project's been in the works for quite a while, and FEMA slowed them down quite a bit. Yeah. So, and I believe they had opened bids on that as well. And then House Bill 1016, which is the Department of Emergency Services bill, that the Storm Act match was approved. So we have been working with them to get the match money into an account, which we successfully did yesterday. So they should be able to receive that money from FEMA, hopefully, and then we would be able to work on what the process is for approving. That'll be a revolving loan fund like the SRF. In fact, right in statute, it says that it should be set up similar to the drinking water revolving loan fund. So we're working with DES on getting that set up, and they need to get those funds committed within 2 years, and the clock's been ticking for a little while on that because they didn't have the match money. So we're going to try to get that moving along this summer so that those loans can be made and
Is there a timeline they have to operate in?
They have to have, 2 years. They have, and again,
And then
it's a
expect to
revolving
spend,
loan fund,
You
but
know,
so they've got to get their loan policy in place, and those-
this year?
that would be my goal would be to get that done by then. And once they get those loan approvals, then I all should be good. They don't have to have the money spent,
Oh,
but they have.
just okay.
Yeah. So I think we're making significant strides now that we got everybody identified and have got the match funds there, and they can now apply for the federal funds. However, it's a little, they set things up and they say it should be exactly the same as this program, but then there's always things that are different, and which causes things to take a little bit longer, but we're going to get there. And then the last thing is just monitoring, which didn't have any impact on the legacy fund sinking and interest fund. So all was good. So it was a good session from that. So thank you.
Any other business?
That's it at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you hear anything on Fessenden, will you let our office know?
Sure. Yep. Yeah, no, the last week, we had met with Fessenden. I had done a spreadsheet kind of showing them the different ways they could possibly look at funding it. And I haven't heard anything back from them, but, and they haven't said they want to come in for a loan increase, which you guys would see a $2 million loan increase because you'd have to approve that. So, but yeah, if I hear anything back, I will definitely let your office know. Thank you.
It's so sad. I'm so excited. Background and Jeremiah. Cindy. And then they got the bid and it was so fast. The day we did the bill, I think they got the bid.
Hurts.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon.
See ya.
Good to see you.
I'll dig into our third quarter results here. We had a solid third quarter at the state mill with profits of $6,771,000. That's up 31% over the $5,187,000 that we had in the third quarter of last year. And thanks to all the efforts of all of the North Dakota mill employees, this wasn't a record for a single quarter for NDM. Year to date, our total profits total $17,530,000. That's versus profits of $15,027,000 last year, and that puts us up at about 60.6% ahead of last year through three quarters.
So your profit's going way up even though your costs
are. Yeah, and part of the reason for that is because our volume is up. Our costs are going to go up with that increased volume. But and as you'll see later, total sales dollars is down again so far this year. Shipments for the third quarter were 4,540,000 hundredweights. That compares to 4,226,000 last year, so up 7% for the quarter. Year-to-date shipments are 13,950,000 hundredweights. That's versus 12,998,000 last year, also up about 7%. Increased third quarter profits are mainly due to the shipment volumes, as I mentioned, basis gains, and also base values are up. Our shipments consisted of about 91% spring wheat flour and 9% durum products. Bag and tote shipments increased by 5% for the quarter to 825,000 hundredweights. Year to date, bag and tote shipments are 2,374,000. That's up about 6% from last year. Family flour shipments continue to be very strong. For the quarter, we had 145,000 hundredweights, and that's up about 12%. And we're up about 12% year to date at 437,000 hundredweights. Continue to see good demand for both Dakota Made and private label retail products. Organic shipments for the quarter decreased 41%, mainly due to shipment timing, and we're at down about 2% year to date. Total wheat purchase was 9.5 million bushels for the quarter, and we're at 29.8 million bushels so far year to date. On to the business discussion and outlook. Third quarter sales were 115,131,000. That's compared to 123,236,000 last year. Even though our shipments are up nicely, 7%, our total sales dollars are down slightly due to the continued lower average cost of wheat this year versus last year. Year-to-date sales were 357 million. That's versus 481 million last year, also for the same reason. Operating costs for the quarter were $3.08 per hundredweight versus $2.98 last year, up 3%, mainly due to wages, energy costs, insurance costs. Year-to-date operating costs were $2.81 per hundredweight. That's versus $2.79 last year, for the same reasons. Gross margins as a percent of gross sales for the quarter was up nicely at 18.9% versus 15.4% last year. And year-to-date gross margins were 17.2% versus 14.3% last year. On March 31st, our net hedge ratio, which we watch closely, was at 1.0 with the monthly values all at 1 or close to 1. Going forward into the fourth quarter, we do expect to continue to see good results and demand for our customers. We're running 24/7 right now, and we see demand staying strong through the summer months and into the fall baking season. Spring wheat planting is ahead of the 5-year average. Soil moisture due to the recent range is good over most of the state. I think up in our zone up in the northeast, I think the wheat planting is mostly done. I think we're showing 81% planted, something like that, through Monday of this week. That concludes my report on the financials. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Great. For the report on the policy and procedure review, or DLS, happy to lead that discussion.
Sure. In May of 2024, the North Dakota Mill and Elevator came before the commission and asked for their approval for us to hire an independent consultant to complete the review of our policies and procedures in response to a former employee complaint. So just recently, that RFP has been completed and posted. We posted it online to the procurement website on May 9th. With the closing date for those proposals to be June 9th. We have asked for the scope of that area of review to be the IT-related policies and procedures, HR-related policy procedures, travel-related procedures, and then reviewing of handling confidential documents and the best practices for retaining them, as well as some other areas of governance and policy. So we're looking to receive those proposals back, get that awarded by the beginning of the fiscal year, and then have the final report for your review by the end of the calendar year would be our hope. So happy to answer any questions on that.
Questions?
Great. Just for other business, I wanted to mention just quickly a good storage and handling project. It's our largest single project that we've ever done. It's actually due to start up for us in the next few weeks. We're excited, so we're excited about that and the benefits that project will provide. And also, we're progressing on the engineering for the A, B, and D mill 9th floor addition, which will allow the D mill expansion, which we could use this year. We hope to bring some capital requests for those projects. So that's all we have.
With that expansion, what do you anticipate then for final output? Or how will that impact and affect?
It'll increase the size of our current email, which is presently the smallest mill that puts out about 500 hundredweight per day. And the new mill will be in the neighborhood of 4,000 hundredweights per day. So it'll be a
Considerable.
3,500 hundredweights per day increase, or a couple more rail cars of flour per day. So
Yeah.
7%, I think it is.
That's good.
You know, we're excited about it, and our customers are as well.
Making an impact.
Huge.
Thanks.
That, Mr. Chairman.
We gotta kick the reporters out.
I would move it under the authority of Northwest Century Code Sections 6-09-35, 44-04-19.1, 44-04-19.2, that the Industrial Commission enter into an executive session for the purpose of North Dakota Mill and Elevator confidential business and Bank of North Dakota confidential business.
Second.
Roll call.
General,
Yes.
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
It's not you first. Sure.
thank you.
Yep.
Before we get it off here.
The commission is meeting in executive session pursuant to NDCC 4404-19.1 and 4404-19.2 to consider those items listed on the agenda under the North Dakota Mill and Elevator confidential business. Only commission members, their staff, commission staff, and mill staff will participate in this executive. Following the Mill and Elevator executive session, the commission is meeting in executive session. Meeting in executive session pursuant to 609-35 and 4404-19.2. Consider those items listed on the agenda under Bank of North Dakota confidential business. Only commission members, their staff, and commission staff, and Bank of North Dakota staff will participate in this executive session. Any formal action taken by the commission will occur after it reconvenes in open session. I remind the commission members and those present in the executive session that the discussion must be limited to the announced purposes. The executive session is anticipated to last approximately 1 hour and will begin at 1:51 p.m. we're good, right? The executive session has ended at 2:40 PM and the commission is reconvened in open session. During the mill and elevator executive session, the commission discussed those items listed on the agenda, no formal action was taken. During the Bank of North Dakota executive session, the commission discussed those items listed on the agenda and no formal action was taken. We will now move into Bank of North Dakota presentation by Jared.
Thank you, Governor. Yeah, my name is Jared. I'm an audit partner with iBailey, located here in our Bismarck, North Dakota office. A couple audits to present to the Industrial Commission today. The first one is the North Dakota Guaranteed Student Loan Program. So this audit was over the December 31, 2024 financial statements. So I'll really just base my presentation off the results of the audit. And if there's any other questions that come up, happy to field those. But page 1 of the report is where we have our audit opinion listed out. In the results of our audit, we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements prepared and presented by the bank. This is the cleanest opinion that a public accounting firm or a CPA firm can provide over a set of financial statements in the audit. Basically, we're saying, in our opinion, that there's no material misstatements or misrepresentations in the financial statements. As a result of this audit, we did not identify any internal control issues that would be required to communicate to those charged with governance of a significant deficiency or material weakness nature. There were no audit adjustments identified as a result of the audit. Very clean audit. So don't have anything else to present specific to this. Would welcome any questions you may have.
Good news. Hey.
Okay, if no questions, I can jump over to the audit of the Bank of North Dakota, specifically the FASB audit. So again, page 1 is where we have our audit opinion. So a little bit of the uniqueness here with this audit opinion. Our audit opinion is unmodified, so a clean opinion over the financial statements in accordance with FASB. But since this is a governmental state agency, specifically an enterprise fund of the state of North Dakota, the financial statements would be presented in accordance with GASB, or Government Accounting Standards. So because of that, we have to give this adverse, kind of one-off little opinion modification because of the uniqueness of the accounting framework. Same opinion we've given every single year that we've done this audit, so no changes to that, nothing to bring awareness to. Just wanted to explain that because there's a difference between the previous report. As a result of this audit, similar to the Guaranteed Student Loan Program, no internal control deficiencies identified that would result in a significant deficiency or material weakness to be communicated. Also, no audit adjustments identified as a result of the financial statement audit. Again, very clean audit. Nothing else to go over unless you have any questions.
No, thank you for clarifying that, because in the past, we've had people that have listened and online or in person. And it was a bit disingenuous because they said we didn't do the proper accounting audit. And it's like, we follow what government standards, financial standards require, and so appreciate that.
Yeah. Excellent. I believe that's all we have to present, Governor.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank you.
We shall strive for unmodified.
Yeah. No news is really good news. Absolutely. All right, I will go over performance highlights. When Rob heard it was going to be me going over performance highlights, I said, "Oh, I'll be good on my own." He said, "No, we're going to have Annie there." I didn't. I took offense to that. So this is through 3/31, really high level. We're still growing over last year, not as at an aggressive pace, which I like. Our loan portfolio is not growing as fast as really we expected. It is continuing to grow. A lot of that's coming from agriculture and the disaster relief fund loans. Our securities portfolio is really staying pretty even. I'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a bit. Our deposits, we expected them to shrink on out from 8.8 million last year, billion, 8.3, we're running 8.4, so kind of right on target in terms of where we're looking at deposits. Equity capital continues to grow. We continue our net profit, continue to put that into capital, even with the dividend amounts that went out here for the legislative session. In terms of the income statement, we are less than last year, which we did expect. We're a little bit less than what our budget is, but the really good news here is we took the advantage. Our earnings were running really strong through the first quarter, and the rate environment became conducive to do some swaps in our securities portfolio. So you'll see that non-interest income is showing an $11 million net loss. We'd only budgeted a $6 million net loss. We ended up taking a $13 million loss. Even with taking that in the quarter, we're still right on budget. So that gives you an idea on how strong the earnings were through the first quarter. Even better news is we're able to swap out about 900 million all in rough numbers of 1.5% securities, put them into high 4, low 5% securities, and the payback of that loss is sometime this October. So even this year, the loss trade is accretive to earnings for the year. So it made sense from all angles. Really, really good work done by our finance team to get that done. Expenses are running really less than what we had expected. So that's good news. And all in, we expect really, really strong earnings for the year, especially after that loss. So things are looking good. In terms of leverage and capital, they continue to run very, very strong. In terms of net loans earning assets, which is the liquidity position, I like running the bank in that 58, 59, 60% loan to asset ratio. That's nice liquidity. So we're still holding nice capital, nice liquidity, I'd say strong capital, strong liquidity. Our securities portfolio, the one thing we did give up by doing the loss swap trade was we put on some duration in that securities portfolio. Where we're at in the rate cycle, I honestly don't mind sitting with a little more duration in that securities portfolio, because I think when you look ahead the next 3 years, we're more likely to be in a down rate scenario than not. You can't ever guess the rate cycle. Obviously, if you'd guessed it over the last 3 years, you've been 100% wrong. But we remain pretty well positioned, kind of right in the middle of the road, even with this duration pickup, kind of regardless of what rates do moving forward. We will be impacted by rate moves, but we feel pretty well positioned overall. In terms of from operating metrics on page 6, our peer comparison, we continue to run in line. Non-performers have come up, as Kirby talked about. We're watching that really closely. We talked about our go-forward strategies. Return continues to be strong. Leverage capital continue to be strong. Our margin is improving as our loan portfolio continues to ladder up the new rate cycle or on the new rate curve as they mature, as you throw in the securities bond loss swap. Things like that, we are improving margin to a certain extent. In terms of loan originations, I'd turn to Kirby and see if there's anything pertinent there.
We can see we're up compared to last year, 175 million. So that's good news. Almost all that's in the commercial area, and most of that's bank participations and bank stock loans.
I would say the rest of the programs through here, gentlemen, just in terms of all the buckets, whether it's ag, commercial, student loans, the portfolios continue to perform very well. Albeit with some credit quality deterioration, still minor, still manageable, but something we're keeping a close eye on. Anything in addition to ag, Kirby, on delinquencies or non-performers?
I typically report on credit quality on page 15. Give a couple comments there. So on page 15, our allowance for 120 million. This is the first time you've seen an increase on this in probably 2.5 years. We've been seeing a decrease as a percentage, not necessarily on a dollar amount, but you can see we're back up to 1.96%. Compare that to where we were even back in 22, we're at over 2%. It's been trickling down this quarter because of some of the deterioration you've heard about. We have funded the allowance to the point where we now have a little bit higher provision, and we've been not reversing out quite as much of the provision as we were previously. On the right-hand side there, you can see the orange and the green lines. It shows our classified loans in the orange. That's showing the uptick due to some of the credits we discussed earlier. And then the green line is a non-performing loans. That's up as well, but still quite a bit south of our North Dakota average. We're at 0.73. North Dakota average non-performing loans 0.94. So overall, we are sitting really well, very well reserved at 2.47%. If you look at our allowance, it's a percent of all non-guaranteed loans. And then the credit quality delinquencies, kind of tell two different stories here. We've got commercial and farm. Talked about some of the struggles with a few of those credits. We've got commercial and farm delinquencies on the rise. Residential and student loans, however, showing nice decreases, which is a little bit surprising, especially on the student loan side, to be seeing that the federal student loans are seeing rampant increases in delinquencies. Yet our student loan portfolio is actually performing better. So, and it's not just delinquencies.
North Dakotans pay their bills.
They do.
They really do. It's a marked difference. So.
Our student loan default claims are trending down, and our student loan forbearances, both no pay and low pay, are also trending down. We're down about $6 million just on over the last year. So pretty much everything on the student loan side is positive to report, and then a few issues, of course, we talked about on the commercial and ag side.
And then I just take you to the last page, our productivity, critical to continue to manage this. We had a nice bump in 2020 with the growth and maintaining that. I've said several times in various different settings up to this point, we've got to watch that we're not leaning so much into productivity that the risk profile is increasing. You can see we made some hires of some folks from 2024 to 2025, which is good because it kind of leveled out that productivity spot. So I think we're running at about the right level. Looking ahead the next couple of years, get a little tight on us, especially depending on credit mode. Depending what credit mode we do. So we've got a little bit of room. It's fine. Any questions on performance highlights? Okay. I have the annual report that came out. I'm going to go through any financials in here with you. Our intent with this was to move away from reporting so much on the financial side and move and report the really good stories in our mission. So you'll see things in here like our wish, like our move in financial literacy, smart with your money, really great stories throughout our annual report on a lot of our mission stuff. So I think it's a really, really good report, and I just stand for any feedback or questions you have. All right, I do have a couple of things I'm seeking approval on. The first one is a pretty standard resolution. We need just authorize personnel at the bank to execute loan instruments for some of our borrowing capacity. I believe that's what it's for. Really, not much more to say. It's pretty standard. And then you don't.
I have a separate motion for that one. Do you maybe just want to talk through the other one?
Yeah, I sure can. The other one is, as you know, we're moving forward with the SMART plan for the bank. Thank you so much for your approval last go around. We are starting to make some changes within the various policies and procedures to implement it throughout. What is in front of you is a change I'm making in terms of delegating and elevating more with the executive team. Right now, all these small tactical things come through me, and that was set up from before. And I met with the exec team and said, I don't need to sign off on every one of these. You and my head of HR sign off with them at the executive level for things like retention bonuses, things like that, recruitment bonuses, things like that. And then I will review quarterly reports. So it's my move to delegate and elevate. So really, it's just a title change to implement that. And I'd say in terms of our, we've had the recruitment retention bonus potential for a long, long time. I look back at the history of how much it's been used at the Bank of North Dakota. The average spent in a year is $20,000 on a $200 million net income statement. The bank has spent about $20,000 recruiting people or retaining them on average. So it's been used very, very, very frugally up to this point. Those are the two I would be seeking approval on.
So move. There's two of them. I didn't get that. We have to have two.
All right.
We got tab 21 and then 22.
I move, first motion on executing the instruments affecting interest and liens. And I move the second one on the advisory board, proposed changes to the bank's recruitment and retention policy.
I second each of those motions.
Discussion.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes
Okay.
and yes.
Yes. Yes.
got it.
Yes.
Try to keep up.
Got that third one. It's all Doug's house.
We're going with that.
Some people will be upset. I'll explain it to them.
I'm going to give you just a verbal, there's nothing in your packet, just a verbal legislative recap from the Bank of North Dakota standpoint, now that we're kind of finally at the end of everything. Overall, our budget bill, I will say the capital policy, again, the good work done, the good work approved by you guys, that proactive communication with legislative leadership. We had a very good session in terms of, draws, additional draws on the bank earnings. We ended up right where that communique was at from you guys to start with one small item at the end that came in, which was a potential up to 5 million for the Theodore Roosevelt library, a buy down of that interest rate on that library. That did get in. At the end of the day, I think it was 2:30 in the morning, and I think Calvin finally gave in. So we looked at 5 million as a win on a 200 and some million dividend total. So, but really good progress from prior sessions. In terms of the additional things we had on our budget, the ability to hold participant loan information confidential, that did pass. That's a nice change. We did get the increase to the PACE program to do the additional $1 million for those that have a material economic impact without additional funds required by the locals who sometimes have struggled even to raise the 500,000 that's been out there for some time. So that got passed. We did enhance the Rebuilders Loan Program to open up that authority to do some various programs that we have in case of a disaster. We did inherit administration of the Rail Revolving Loan Fund from Department of Transportation. Our visits with them, they welcome the change. They're still going to make the decisions on these, but we're going to administer them and use our loans. It's really just matching up the expertise. And then we do have a new long-term care loan program within our legislatively directed programs. That was really the only material change in the true loan fund programs in those legislative buckets. In terms of lines of credit, it was definitely a line of credit session. I mean, the line of credits they've gotten big. Now we've done all the analysis and we're okay with where we're at in terms of liquidity and capital funding and growth. We can manage this. But we did have a conversation near the end of session with leadership saying the lines got big. And this time, unlike prior sessions,
They're going to come due.
well, and they're going to expect to have some balances. So it did shift. Prior sessions, it was, well, we have the lines, but we only want them for the commitment. We don't expect to advance. Now there's some actual expectations to the tune of 260 to 300 million that will actually need to be paid back in the next legislative session. So we're going to keep close eyes on that, keep communicating that with all the relevant parties to make sure nobody forgets about that or loses sight of that. But all in, we're in a good position. We can manage these lines of credit. Like I said, we've got the balance sheet horsepower to do it. So happy to do it.
Which segues in a little bit. I know the Senate's named people for cash management. Has the House yet? So as soon as we know those names, because one of the things we try to do when we'll do the committees, like if they're on budget section anyway, we'll try and coordinate some of those meetings, but we should get together a little bit, maybe like you, me, and Beetle, and kind of get first steps on what those committee meetings.
Sounds good. Perfect. Yes.
Line of credit should be one of those conversations.
Yes, definitely.
So they understand.
Lines of credit, in the box, out of the box, all of the above.
Well, they put something in the water budget with it too. So, I mean, they're already kind of,
Yes.
I mean, there's some of that starting already.
Yep. that is what we have from the Bank of North Dakota standpoint, so.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys,
Have a good weekend.
Yes, happy
Safe
Memorial
weekend.
Day.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Get your lawnmowers ready.
Yeah.
You're gonna need them.
Yeah, thank you. Man of the hour. Second time. I'm like, yeah, I can do it.
You know that guy.
You're up.
All right, good afternoon. This is one of the rare times I come to the commission meeting without slides, maps, charts, anything like that, so. welcome to-
Justin's unprepared. Said you'll be ever.
Someone's had a long week. Sorry about that,
Justin. I've got just a few things that will be pretty brief, I believe. So the first is just a quick legislative recap. Last month, this meeting, the House version of the Pipeline Authority's budget had 60 million, increased from 30 million to 60 million in their version. In the last hours and days of the session, that got tailored so that what we came out of session with was the existing $30 million per year in that capacity, and then an additional 20 million per year that had a couple items tagged along with it. So for a total combined of $50 million per year potential for the Pipeline Authority and the Commission. And that extra $20 million, the incremental provisions were that a decision would have to be entered by December 31st of 2026. So we're not up against any type of near-term deadline that we need to keep in consideration, but it's out there. I don't think it'll become a major factor. And the other change was just some reporting requirements to the budget section, which I think will go well. So that's the recap on the legislative side. Item B is the item that I'm requesting action from the commission. Find in your packet an RFI. I would like to send out as soon as possible to parties interested in potentially building a pipeline west to east in North Dakota. And so this RFI would go out to the two public projects that we know about, the Intensity and WBI Bakken East. It will also go out to a handful of other companies that at least at some level in the past have expressed some interest in performing that duty. So you can see in that RFI the various criteria. The RFI would be due June 24th, so before the next commission meeting, we would know. We will see if we end up with one or multiple. Both open seasons, WBI's has closed. NC's open season closes tomorrow. So we will see if we end up with one or multiple responses to this RFI, and then we can take the next steps from there. All the information in here is stuff that the companies have already disclosed to me in one way, shape, or form, but this will put it in a formal setting for you and your staff and myself to review then.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. How long does it take this, like, how long do you expect it to take to get the information back?
The request is due June 24th, so in a month.
Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General.
Yes.
Governor.
Yes.
And so the timeline for that, again, due June 24th. The expectation and goal would be that.
Oh, look at that timeline, right?
Yep. So coming out of that, I would like to have a recommendation working with you or your staff for the July meeting or next steps, what that might look like for the commission. So pretty timely process, and hoping not to be a barrier to some of these projects as they're moving forward with their necessary timelines. And then the last item was just a decision memorandum that I formally just wanted to have sent to you as commissioners, but then I'm also going to include this with the RFI packet that goes out today, just so that those respondents can see what the director myself feels is important evaluation criteria. What are the key items that we're going to be looking at in these responses? as any type of recommendation and decisions occur going forward. It's all that
Seems
I-
like we've been having this conversation a lot over the last 10 years. This feels like.
Yeah, it's gonna get exciting.
Yes, we hope.
Yes.
Moving off from dead center. This is good.
That is all I have. I don't have any other business here for you this afternoon, but we'll be in close contact here in the coming days and weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
You're up, Jordan.
You actually did it without any slides.
I know. Don't get
Handouts?
used to it.
Yeah. Don't come back unless you have. it.
Yeah.
How about the DMR guys? We're running a little ahead of schedule.
Not used to that yet?
We're not quite used to it yet.
Right.
So we might have to rearrange a little bit.
Just throw some topics on the table.
Should you start?
Nothing comes to mind.
We could have Justin come back and
Yeah.
throw some slides in.
I always got something that's popular on this folder or something.
Claire doesn't have anything to give us today.
Very end.
I can't remember, I heard you're talking on NPR one morning.
So did it put you back to bed or?
Well, you changed policy in North Dakota 180 degrees on something. I can't remember what it was. I said, glad he notified us.
Yeah, okay.
No, I don't remember what it was. It's a good segment though. I couldn't tell if you were giving a speech somewhere or what the deal was. It was good.
I don't know.
Forgive me, I don't remember, but it was about 2 weeks ago.
If
Oh, 2 weeks ago, and my Jeep didn't veer off the road and hit a tree or anything, so.
That's good.
That's good.
Yes.
And then behind tabs 34 and 35, we have the contracts for the Pipeline Authority Executive Director and the Transmission Authority Executive Director. And so these are now up for renewal. What we did a year ago is we put these two contracts on a biennial renewal cycle. Some other things that we did with these contracts at that time is we tried to build more uniformity into our professional services contracts across the board, and then also incorporate some additions that the Attorney General's office had requested that we incorporate into all of our contracts for our professional services contracts as well as some of the contracts that we use for our grant programs. So I'm very pleased to put this recommendation forward to renew contracts for Justin Crainstead and for Claire Vigasa. I'm very pleased that they are willing to continue to serve in those roles. They do a fantastic job for us. They're always such a pleasure to work with. And with that, I'd answer any questions if you have any about the contracts or.
Well, I'll make a motion in the discussion. So move.
Second.
So apparently Justin isn't very worried about this, but Claire's here. Is he
Justin
worried?
probably was coming back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is the same Justin who was just here with no slides.
Getting a little comfortable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wants to re-up things, see if he can elevate his game. Okay.
I did review the contracts with both Justin and Claire. They both reviewed their scope of work. Made some minor adjustments to them, but they're largely the same.
So they have to work 70 hours a week and
Yep.
sleep in the office one night. That's okay. That's
All right.
good. I'm fine.
In all seriousness, they both do a great job.
They do. They do.
Yep.
And we're not just saying that because you're here, because
Yeah.
You'd have left the room, we would have said it too.
We're gonna trash Justin right now. We're going to executive session for purposes of talking frankly about Justin. No, you guys are very skilled. We're really
Yes.
lucky. Thank you.
Absolutely.
and none of this stuff's getting easier.
No,
I mean, it's just not. So, roll call.
Commissioner,
yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
Although the outlook has improved with the change of administrations. So the leak reports when trajectory out for what's happening, shutting down plants, mothballing, coal, all of it. Yeah. Claire was the first person who told us we weren't maybe gonna have brownouts.
Do you want
We're
to
going
do
have
36 quick? Because then he doesn't have to sit around if he doesn't want to.
so Claire,
I
do
mean,
you
now that-
want to join us and
Sure.
cover the concept paper?
Yeah, governors and commissioners, this is something like I shared with Karen. We don't like this last minute stuff, but
This is a good one.
amazingly, the GDO has speeded up their processes. So anyway, what they're offering $28 million in 5 grants to states. And it's for the acceleration of generation to meet the tremendous demand growth. So the University of Illinois, it's called the Prairie Research Institute, has reached out to SPP, MISO, and our utilities, the Public Service Commission, and to me. And they feel like North Dakota is very prime for receiving these grants for a few reasons, but the main reason is that this organization, the Industrial Commission, the Governor's Office, our congressional delegation, and the legislature and industry is all aligned, and they feel like that will give us great points. He couldn't do that in his home state, just saying. So anyway, what they would like is a state agency or a state entity needs to be the prime applicant. And I visited with Victor at the Public Service Commission, and he felt like it's more appropriate with the Industrial Commission. So that's what we're asking. You have another opportunity. This primary or preliminary application or concept paper is due June 30th. And then GDO will get thumbs up, thumbs down. So if you are uncomfortable with this later, you could, we could back out of it, but you'll have another chance to say yes or no to participate. So I just think this is lines up. But we have the Attorney General has mentioned, we have a lot of things lining up for us, and North Dakota is positioned well with our energy, natural gas, coal, wind to be a big player for our RTOs to provide generation. So
Yeah.
So I
So moved.
just, yeah. Second. Thank you.
Don't talk me out of it.
They're not leave the table yet, Claire. They hadn't voted.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Oh, discussion. I just wanted to say something formally.
Oh, yeah.
I am glad that the chairman of the Industrial Commission is aligned with the governor's office.
Yeah.
Roll call?
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see what happens in 100 days. We got to go. Very general knows. I didn't do.
Well-
I just read it. All right, which one do we want to do now? Where are we at?
well, we could wrap up the admin office. with-
Yes.
with
Yeah,
Jordan,
let's
doing a
do
quick recap on the legislative session for that.
You have, these are slightly updated for you as well. Most of these bills, of course, we've talked about multiple times during the session, but just to recap, we've kind of heard what the other agencies have presented where the budgets fell as far as the Senate Bill 2014. If there's anything you'd want to discuss specifically in the budget, but I think we kind of know what those numbers are. House Bill 1025, Legislative Management Study on Advanced Nuclear Energy. I would just mention that the one member is to be appointed by the Industrial Commission, and I know the gentleman that was just here, where did he leave now? There he is, there he goes.
See, only nice.
So, Executive Director of the Transmission Authority there would be interested and willing to serve as one example. I just know he would be interested, so that would be one proposal.
Do we know when they're scheduling their first meeting?
No, after.
Probably
After
after
Do we have to act today, or can we do it at the next meeting? But we
Okay.
should probably do it at the next meeting, make sure. So we have that appointed before they meet. Wait till he's not here to railroad.
Yeah, as far as any of the other, energy and the other grant programs, stuff we've all discussed in the past, so I don't want to take up too much time, but if there's any questions that you want to discuss specific to the admin office.
But, I mean, thanks for the update. Changes before.
The only comment I would add to this on Senate Bill 2256, that's the new grant program for the Research and Technology Park. We will have our first meeting on that first week of June, and just to talk about standing up the program. And the concept would be substantially similar to CERC at EERC. So I'll be able to give you more of an update.
As always, you have in your materials all of the current status on all of the funds. And specific to Lignite, you see there's about $6.5 million of uncommitted funds available. See, there's 22 million in the cash balance that's committed to 20 projects and other administrative costs. And the funding source, again, for this fund, 10 million. Normal gas taxes, about 8.5 million. Severance and conversion taxes. And so right now with the fund sitting at 6.5 million, once the biennium begins and coal taxes begin to get into the fund again, that'll begin to increase slowly. Of course, the 10 million that comes from the oil and gas tax distributions, that'll probably be more towards next spring maybe before that bucket would get filled. So I just bring that up as far as, so there's about $3 million projects looking to be at the advisory board suggested for approval today. So if those are both approved, you'd have about $3.5 million left. And then so by the fall grant round, November, you'd have maybe a ballpark of 5 million available, give or take. And then next spring, then you get an influx of that 10 million. Bring that up this year. I think the funding is there for grant rounds. So that's where it's at. Also on the last slide, you see kind of that full revenue picture there, where the money comes from, that flows into the fund. So I would conclude that.
All right, so first grant application.
All right.
ERC.
Yep, the first grant is titled development and next generation carbon capture technologies for efficiency improvement and cost reduction. The ERC is proposing to build up their infrastructure they currently have and help do testing to reduce risks associated with deployment of carbon capture technologies on our coal-fired power plants. It's a proposal for the first year of a 5-year effort, and it's a 70% coverage by the Department of Energy, and then 30% by a combination of the ask from the Industrial Commission's Lignite Research Program. It's 1.46 million request with a total project size of 6.1 million. The recommendation of the advisors with a score of 222.3 out of 250, they all recommended to fund. The vote by the Lignite Research Council was 21 in favor and 0 opposed. And my recommendation is also to fund as a way to help reduce those uncertainties and risks associated with the technology and economics by getting more data. And the reason the oil and gas research program is also involved is because they're the other end of the demand for CO2. And the word on the street is they're looking at possibly normalizing the $60 a ton CO2 for EOR up to 85, but you all would know more about that potential than me.
So move.
Second.
Is the DOE money still real?
Yeah, so what I asked about 3 managers on that, and they had delays where the DOE wasn't talking to them, but lately now the DOE is talking to them and they're moving toward getting the projects in place. So it looks like they're going to become real again.
Okay.
Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes.
The second project is titled Commercial Plant Design Optimization for Lignite to Critical Carbon Materials. The proposer is AmeriCarbon Products, LLC. It's a 12-month project where they take lignite, turn it into what they call eco-pitch. Their near-term commercial market, long-term, it's carbon products as a whole. Near-term, they're looking at asphalt binder and graphene, which, by the way, graphene, the projections are a 300% increase in demand in the next 6 years. So a good market. Technology that's gone well all throughout the early phases of testing, and they're at that doorstep of making a commercial decision. So they want to put some last effort into design and economics to make a decision on whether or not they can move forward. The request is for just under 1.5 million for a $3 million project. The score was 233.3 with 3 reviewers average out of 250. And again, the Lignite Research Council voted 21 for and 0 against, all in favor of funding. And my recommendation is to fund.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much for the support.
You got it.
Good projects.
Yep.
We're going to get back to our stuff.
Yep.
And then we'll have Jason. Commissioner?
How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ed Murphy will be here shortly to give his report. We looked while we were at the office, and we were about a half hour ahead, so we hustled over. The first item that we're going to cover, Mark's going to cover it in a little more detail, but I'll just kind of give the high level, is the non-completed waiver. We spoke about this briefly last month and let you all know that we would be watching prices and activity levels really close. We've done that. We've watched, spoken with almost all the major operators in the state and have a decent idea of what their intention is regarding their capital investment into activity levels in North Dakota. And several have signaled slight reductions in activity levels. So with that, we felt it was probably appropriate time to do what Mark's going to explain. And I guess I'll let Mark kind of explain the non-completion number a little bit more in depth.
Good afternoon. So this is a updated policy. We have implemented this before. The last time was during COVID in 2020. There were a couple other waivers that we had at that time also. We don't, those are ripe at this time, but non-completed well waiver, what that allows is an operator to drill a well, but not completed. According to our regulations, once the well is TD, you have 1 year to put it on production. After that, there's certain rules that kick in, and they have to either put the well in production or plug it. Of course, nobody wants to plug a perfectly brand new well. So under 4302 or 355, it allows the director to eliminate waste for various reasons. We feel this would be one of those reasons. I would point out the first italicized paragraph on page 1. It talks about the uncertain commodity prices and that these guidelines are necessary to prevent waste, protect the environment, and protect relative rights. We're proposing that this relief be granted until the Department of Transportation lifts the highway load restrictions in spring of 2027. We chose that time frame. We don't want to, as far as earlier, we don't want to force people to go out there and try to complete wells with load restrictions are still on the highway. So that'll give them some time after that. These wells have been drilled to TD, they've been cased, but they have not been perforated. The remainder of the procedure is just the new for the operators, how this is implemented, how they can go through these steps. And the integrity of the well is proven with their application, and they have to monitor the well quarterly, the pressures or leakage, make sure that there's nothing going on. And our field inspector will be driving by these wells also when they're out there doing their normal field routines. So we're asking for your endorsement of this policy, and we will put it in place immediately.
Just to add, go ahead, sir.
Oh, you've had conversations referred to with industry. Does this seem like it buys them enough time so that they won't necessarily slow down their activity in North Dakota? And with anticipation that they can still complete wells at a later date.
Yeah, I spoke with NDPC and got an idea of what their membership, how their membership felt about this. And they had interest from a couple operators in it. Initially, I was like, well, does it really help capital investment if they get to drill, but not complete the well and then not, gain the revenue from those wells? In my mind, not necessarily, but they do have members of the NDPC that are interested in this. So we felt it was a good time to do that. If we, as of today, they have 12 months from today. So really what
Yeah,
Mark,
this is only holes that have already been drilled.
correct, or that
They're
would
just
be
getting a
drilled
little.
during the time.
Yeah, or there could be drilled, going forward also.
But they get 1 year, right?
They get 1 year from right now, so it would be
Or
a well
whenever
that's
load restrictions are lifted, whichever one's later.
in
We're getting
2027.
pretty clo-
Yeah.
Oh, 2020, never mind,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so we're giving them a year on top of the year that they have right
I just took a year off my own life.
And so the idea would be that if we're still in this type of environment at that time, that we would consider coming back for an extension if that were the case.
Well, what I like about it is we got a couple things going on with, a potential pipeline going in, anticipation of some other projects that might be named in a year or two. And we might be in order to really put these wells to good use when they get completed.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that we don't have a large duck count, drilled but uncompleted duck count in the state right now. So coming into a softer price environment that we're heading into right now, or we've been in for a little while, is
a little bit challenging, so.
What percentage of news, and I'm not asking for an example, sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna make a motion to approve this.
I'll
So
second
moved.
that. I'll second it.
What percentage of these are infilled at this point? I mean, it's gotta be real high.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I mean, it's not like we're chasing leasehold, right? Like, this is, I mean, I've been through this. I know the arguments for it. I know the arguments against it. The argument for it right now is to keep people working and keep the service people here.
Exactly.
The relationships with everybody, from mineral owners to royalty owners to working interest owners, are all more mature because it's almost all infield drilling at this point. We want to keep the human resource here because otherwise getting that back's really hard.
Yeah. The operators that we've spoke of recently, including, just this week down in Oklahoma City, plan to keep their workover rig programs going. It's really a slight pullback in drilling and completion activities until prices just a little bit. We've seen a modest dip in rig count, frac crew count just recently. But there's some signaling of a little bit deeper cut. So that's one tool that we have to try to see if we can help that out just a little bit. So yeah, we were asking for your guys' support. It was implemented during 2020, one other time.
Anything else? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
All right, I'll go ahead and run through the legislative update. It doesn't have to be lengthy because I think we've been through the majority of these, but we offer the attached summary of bills, which is this PowerPoint that the team members from both the oil and gas division and the survey worked on throughout the process. We followed, approximately 70 bills. We testified on 8 different bills on numerous occasions for each one. At the bottom, it kind of outlines some of the major themes that were covered in this session. On page 3, there's a couple bills of interest, 3 of in particular that we testified on, 1186 on the House side, and then on the Senate side, 2360 and 2368. Moving on to page 4, Senate Bill 2285 was judicial deference. The indication in the upper right-hand corner there indicates whether it passed or failed. I won't go through this in detail, just that it was on our radar. Page 5 is the State-Owned Oil Association. Again, that one failed. Page 6 is the House Bill 1459, the Critical Minerals Rare Earth Elements Bill. That passed. Ed Murphy, more so than myself, but both of us had significant involvement in this process, and Ed may touch on that in his update, but that passed in a different form than it started in. Page 7 is the 1483, the oil extraction tax reduction for non-Bakken formations, and the details of that are on that page. Senate Bill 2397 is similar. It's a similar exemption to 1483, but essentially for all formations, including the Bakken Three Forks, and then the details regarding that are right on the bottom. But the last bullet on page 8 there specifies the role of the NDIC to administer those wells that are allowed to be deemed development incentive wells. So that's something that we'll be working on. I'm assuming that's through the DMR, the Oil and Gas Division specifically. So we'll be working on that process or policy over the next couple months. And then, of course, the budget bill. I think Jordan spoke on that briefly. But the highlights to the Oil and Gas Division, the survey are there on page 9. And then general team ND impacts that affect the employees at the DMR are there as well. And we plan to go through a similar presentation with the team at the DMR tomorrow. So any questions on the legislative update? Okay. That's that. And if Ed is ready, you want to come up here, or do you want to do it from there?
I'm fine here.
Okay.
Gotta say,
21 years is the first time that I think the agendas, you were ahead of the agenda. I got caught, had to run across the parking lot, so I apologize for that.
You've been ahead of every agenda, I think, so far. We swapped out quarterbacks.
So
zero against either. Just very different. Every team has a quarterback.
I'll start on my quarterly report on page one, the graph on top of page one. We had 3 companies in during the first quarter, along with geologists from the Geological Survey, ERC, well, students and professors from UND, NDSU, Moorhead. And for the first time, to my knowledge, a professor from George Mason was working in the core library. So all told, they studied almost 8,700 feet of core. And then in addition, we photographed a little over 2,000 feet of core during the first quarter, generating 2,400 standard photographs. And then we photographed another 6,700 feet with using a tripod in the core box. And then we jump over to page 2, and I'll talk more about our photography program that started back in 2004. So, and I'll be jumping around between these 2 pages, but in the middle upper, you can see a piece of Three Forks, which is why I always say it's the prettiest rock in the basin, not just in shades of green and blue, but also in purple in some cases. But we usually photograph, we've got 409,000 of these photographs to take so far. We're going to go hit 1 million before we're done. Certainly a core will keep coming in, so we'll never be done. But we take these 8-inch segments and then those plug right into the core viewer. And so you can scroll through the core viewer and see these vertically, or if you're a geologist, stratigraphically. And then you can see there's a rectangle at the top of that core in the upper middle. That's where a thin section would sit, although we don't let anyone take a thin section from the front part of the core. You have to take that out where it's not visible. But we've got over 19,000 thin sections. We photograph those by quadrant over in 2 types of light, plain and polarized light. So we've got 8 photomicrographs per thin section. So we've got 151,000 photomicrographs. So all told, we're sitting at 560,000 photographs are up on the subscription site. I wish I was getting a penny off each one of those. But and then over on the top of page 3, you can see our student attempts. The upper left down is photographing the core, and then Tenwa is actually cropping them and then giving them a file number so they'll fit right into the core viewer. And then right below that, you see we've got again, going back to 2004 for the standard photos. And then in 2013 is when we came in with the tripod or box photos. Now we jump back to the bottom of page 2. I wasn't thinking when I was going back and forth with these. I apologize for that. But geologists, they weren't just satisfied seeing these stratigraphically. They want to also see as many pictures as they can at the same time. So here we've got on the bottom of page 2, these are our box photos. Here we've got 36 feet, and starting from the upper left going to the lower right, from top to bottom. So you're looking, the first 2.5 boxes are the lower member, the lower shell of the Bakken going into the Three Forks, and then that blue rectangle, that's the position of that piece of core right above. You can see the colors don't show up as well in these box photos, but again, you can lay out a lot of core in these box photos, and we've done that in core workshops, and you get a good feel for, in fact, you can look at the entire formation if you're looking at, especially at the Bakken and then also at the Three Forks. Now we're on to page 4, studies the Red River Formation. This is one of these examples. We think this literally happens every day, but here's an example where we know the company drilled a couple of wells off of our reports because they've been in contact with us. And this is a study that Tim Neschheim did back in 2017. So he put together this map, and the dark green area is what he was, well, the light green is is where he said there are these organic rich horizons in the river formation that are conducive to oil production. And then the darker kind of a blue-green to me is an area that he felt was underdeveloped. And so using 2D seismic, since these can be pretty thin, from 2 feet up to maybe 8 feet, they didn't have a whole lot of luck between 1969 and 2000. They drilled 7 producing wells going after this target area in the Red River, 32 dry wells. And then when 3D seismic came in, they almost totally flipped that around, 25 producers, 7 dry holes. And that's that red rectangle on that map. And then he was pointing out in his reports in 2017, you should be going south. And that's what Wolverine Gas and Oil Company did in late 2024. They went south, came up with producers, and are planning to go further. So this is an indication. Our reports, maps are out on the website, and companies download them, not necessarily talking to us at the same time. But this is an example where we did feedback. Page 5 brought this up for the Attorney General. This is the Public Fossil Dig Program. On
I was
February
looking through
1st,
those contracts earlier for Justin and Claire to see if they built in a clause where they would be out there chipping away at the rocks.
Well, at February 1st, 10 a.m., we opened up registration. We had 557 spots. At 10:10, we filled up at the Bismarck dig site, and I see Attorney General at 10:11 called in.
Has he asked how many of those people are on the industrial?
Actually, to be truthful, we pull out for the Industrial Commission. We pull that's before it goes live.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Your spots. We're doing Medora, Bismarck, and Pembina this year. We're dropping Dickinson just for the year because we got to save time to do the woolly mammoth in the fall. We're going to probably spend 2 or 3 weeks on that up in northwest North Dakota. So everything filled up by 10:34. So that's pretty typical how quickly these fill up. We've got 100 groups on the waiting list, which probably represents 250 people. And I was trying to get a list of how many, can we tell how many people tried to register? Because I'm sure that's much more than that.
It's great that, I'm not surprised that it's that popular.
So you go back to 2008, just, even though our program goes back to 2000, but since 2008, we've had almost 5,100 people participate. From half of those would be in-state, the other half, 45 states. And then we generated 1,250 fossil fuel jackets from that work that have then been prepared, and those fossils have gone into the Heritage Center as well as other museums and displays around the state. And so it really is one of the most popular paleo dig programs in the country. And on top of page 6, I've mentioned this before the question, but we set aside a day in June for the summer biology students. And so we usually get 80 to 90 students. That's from VHS, Century, Legacy, and Mandan. And we reached out to Dickinson, Williston, Minot, Fargo, Grand Forks, and a lot of other schools, and didn't hear back from anyone. We reached out to API and found out that we were already encompassing over 90% of all the summer biology students in the state. It's not like when I went to high school, that was everywhere you went, they offered summer biology, but now there's so many other classes, especially a lot of the mathematics that they offer, I think, during the summer.
I'm picking up some strategies here. I need to change my major. Is it like the one-time, and careful how you answer this, because is it like the one-time elk tag that they get in there, they can go one time, or?
It probably is, because like for some people, they just seem like they're always out of luck. They just doesn't work, and I'm not really looking at you specifically. No, I am, but
Because I know Congresswoman Fedorchak's daughter has done this twice.
That's
I think you still haven't been.
I think I got that call at night once, and that's how that happened.
Yeah. Julie Stronger.
The bottom of page 6, regulatory programs, again, this might be a first for me. I can't remember where we did issue a permit in one of our programs during the quarter. So, but no permits were issued during the first quarter. Also we had our publications, 40 maps went on landslide phase 3. And then for presentations, tours in the quarter, we gave 23 total. 16 were tours of our paleontology lab and state fossil collection, 13 of which went to school groups, which is really exciting to us. Grand Forks Central High School, Hazelton Moffett, 10th grade. I'm sure we were catching them when they were visiting the Capitol during the legislative session. Liberty Elementary, 4th graders, we did 4 different tours for get all their 4th graders. Homeschool group, another group of 4th graders. Heart River Correction Center, Shiloh, 10th graders. We gave 2 tours, St. Anne's, 10th grade, Missouri Valley Montessori, and then Fontenelle Rock Club, which is actually a group of, I think it was 4th to 8th graders that came up with the bill to name the state rock. And so when they were here to testify on that, we brought them over and ran a tour of the Heritage Center. And then our paleontologists were judges in the Regional Science Olympiad for junior and senior high, which we switch every other year. It's fossils, and now next year it'll be rocks, and we'll help judge with that. So that, Governor, concludes my report.
Any questions?
Interesting.
I'll try harder next year to keep tickets at
Yeah, you kind of let them down.
They actually have a dinosaur museum, man.
You know.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Brent, you're up.
Have a good weekend, guys. Enjoy.
Sure.
Dan?
So, I think we are on to the actually the last section of agenda, rearranged. We have a few items related to our grant programs. So the first grant program that we're going to be addressing is the Oil and Gas Research Program and some funding that was made available specifically for the legislative language's Enhanced Oil Recovery Grant Program that would be added into the original Oil and Gas Research Program. So that's the first item, and you'll find the related attachments behind tab 31. I'll turn it over to Brent.
Thank you. So yes, in response to section 12 of the Senate Bill 2014, the legislation appropriated $25 million towards the Enhanced Oil Recovery Grant Program. So this will go along with our regular grant programs. We did do some adjusting to the grant round deadlines. Typically, we have 2 grant round deadlines per year. June 1st and November 1st are the typical grant round deadlines. We're switching those, amending them to August 15th and January 15th. And what we have, we're looking at doing is administering an RFP for $25 million of enhanced oil recovery projects, in addition to our regular funding for the 25-27 biennium, with the goal of funding 6 to 8 projects geared towards both conventional and unconventional reservoirs. So exciting projects. The evolution of the Bakken continues. Now we're talking about the Williston Basin and what else can we do to improve? Like you mentioned earlier, we're doing infill drilling now. What other formations can we be looking at? And the legislation has supported this, and so we'll get out through the North Dakota Petroleum Council and this RFP out and working with our local partners.
So I move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Have you guys had interest yet? I mean, the interest has kind of been there tangentially.
I think the numbers probably like we've had some funding available in the past, but having another $25 million available, I think operating companies are taking a larger interest in that. So yeah, we have had some operating companies reach out. And we're using the same criteria as we did. We've got the council in place and the technical reviewers, and so use that same process that we've used in the past to pre-vet those proposals and then come to you with what looks good and go from there. But yeah, I think we'll have some immediate interest in this event.
Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes.
And then over to Brenda.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so your last item is with the Outdoor Heritage Fund. There are a number of contracts that are long expired. Some actually didn't even execute their contract. Some did execute it, but never did anything on it. Some did some work on their contracts, but haven't done anything for the last 3, 4, 5 years, and we hadn't really gotten any contact from them. So I went through and cleaned out with the, I talked to the advisory board at our policy meeting that we had last week, and got their grace to go through and clean up some of the projects that have just been kind of sitting dormant and whose contracts are expired. So that last page here is that list of 10 contracts that have been expired anywhere from 2018 to 2022. So basically this next grant round, we initially had about a little over 8 million available one project that should have been decommitted requests a couple years ago. After doing, actually it was like 3 years ago, that never somehow ended up being decommitted. So that put almost 2 million back into the bucket. And then with your guys' approval today, this would put another 1.6. So there'd be a lot more funding to go towards the, I believe, we have 18 projects, I think, coming before us for this OHF grant round next week.
To be clear, they couldn't spend this if they wanted to. No.
So we would have to,
You'd have to
do like amend the contract or completely rewrite a new contract. And there
It
were.
would be the same way as, reapplying for a grant and coming in
And
and saying,
then,
why you didn't
so
spend it
there, I did
last
have
time.
a couple grantees actually reach out and request that, and that was the route that I told them if they want to still do these projects, that they will have to bring back another application to the Outdoor Heritage Fund, as their contracts have all been expired for at minimum 2 to 3 years. Like that was the most recent.
Brenda, what's the time period of those? When do they expire? They're all set number of,
Yeah, they're all different.
they
Based-
said that at the time of the
Yeah.
granting.
Yep, so after we go through the Outdoor Heritage Fund and the board gives a recommendation to bring them to you guys, as soon as you guys approve these projects, I start the contracts right after that, and then I get approved with your office, and then I send them out, so they'll sign them. And some contracts are, 3 to 6 month contracts because they're really short projects, and other contracts are 5 to 10 years based on what the project is. So a lot of these that actually expired were, kind of surprised me, were like 1 year contracts, for just various trails or whatever, like have you parks that they just never even spent $1 on. So if you can see on that back page, the initial contract amount and the amount that's decommitted, and there's quite a few that didn't spend even $1.
Do they ever come back to you and say that they just forgot?
Yeah.
But
A lot of it was turnover. A lot of the cities and park boards and counties, it's because they had turnover, and they said that they're only one person in their office that even knew about the grant. So that was what I heard on a few, but.
And they don't just ask to have it re-granted in the next round, or they can't just do that?
They would have to bring the project forward completely and reapply with another application.
Like a NOGA or something, notice of award grant.
Yeah.
We deal with these, but we've never seen anything this egregious.
It seems a little bureaucratic though to just say, well, they gotta go over and start over. They've already been granted, they've come through the program, they just forgot the deadline. But do you think it's because you're off
They
putting or
haven't
something?
started.
They don't want
In
to.
most cases, they haven't started.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these,
Okay,
like
some of them
their
they do.
contracts, I mean, these are all from before when I even started with the Industrial Commission
So-
2 years ago. So these are very old projects that they didn't even realize they had. And I did, I reached out to every single one of these applicants just to let them know that, the funds are being decommitted because they've been sitting dormant for 4 or 5 years. And there was a few that had done like amendment or did submit a request for a no cost extensions with like Carlene previously. and it was granted, but even with a no-cost extension, even those extensions are already 4 or 5 years past.
Jordan's perplexed. He's like, I worked hard to get this money when I was in the legislature. And now they don't even use it, Jordan. It is odd. That's a lot of money.
It is.
And I'm sure the projects, well, obviously they were meritorious. They were approved for the front end.
So yeah, and they were, a lot of them were good projects, so it is sad to see that they weren't followed through with, but.
Sounds like a front page story in the Fargo Forum to me. I wonder, I mean,
I
it's
wonder
not
what
just
that's
a
gonna
notice thing or something. They're just not paying attention to that.
I think I have more concerns with the fact that people ask for money and then they don't follow through, or they apparently don't need it.
Yeah.
That's the bad part about it. We run multiple programs and they stay on top. Even if they've got turnover, they know they've got money invested. They started a project, they want to recover that.
We'll take it in the Attorney General's office.
Yeah, the good news is they do continue to have a lot of really good projects come forward in the Outdoor Heritage Fund, and there's a lot of interest, so.
They've been great.
For the most part, most of the applicants we work with are really good about communication with our office and are really on top of their projects, even if they did need like a 6-month extension, like they'll let us know
Right.
ahead of time, so,
Well, something
Yeah.
comes up, but that's just a communication issue.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's perplexing to me.
it could have been just because there's a lot of turnover on both sides too, even in our office, with turnover in all of these other counties as well. It's probably a combination. So this was long overdue to have done.
Do we have entities that submit a project for 2 years? Or is everything just, like in our situation, everything is a year? So, or if nothing else, at the end of the biennium, no matter what, unless you ask for an extension, you got to have it done by June 30th.
No, we don't give them, they tell us the timeline that they need for their projects. And if the board thinks the timeline needs to be adjusted, they'll add that into their motion during the meeting, but we go off of what they state in the application, which again can be anywhere from literally 3 months for like a small park that one applicant might be doing to, if it's like a grazing land situation, it could be 5 years. So, no, there's no you have to, we do have obviously a date in the contract based on the
You gotta
timeline
have
that they
that.
provide us, but that can be amended per their request with a no-cost extension.
Interesting.
Stay on top of it. Thank you for finding it. Oh, so moved.
Second.
Any more discussion?
The only other thing I'd do is, it'd be good for the board to be aware of these so they can ask them to stay on top of it too. And
Yep, this is
ask
actually going to be presented as part of our meeting next week because they did request that in the policy meeting that the governor spoke at.
Good.
Well, they'll be happy to get more money to.
Yeah, and so
One
yeah,
more
they were
project
all
might get
for
funded.
going through and seeing who wasn't actually, staying with what their contracts required them to do. So they asked for a report on this at the beginning of that meeting.
Good. All right.
Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing that.
Hey.
And just one more item related to grants.
Yeah, well, Commissioners, I should have mentioned in my legislative recap too, but in the Sustainable Energy Authority Fund, the new funding for that got zeroed out the last day of session, kind of concessions that were made to get the Senate to go along with the capacity funding for the West East Pipeline. So that's, I've had a few phone calls from disappointed individuals or entities on that, but just to include that with the brief legislative reports, so it's gonna be a quiet biennium for CC. Now, there's still 3 million approximately remaining for grants and about 17 million for loans. So they'll have a grant round, but it'll be quieter than what was anticipated. So that's where that's at, just to throw it in there.
Okay, thank you.
That's everything.
We are good.
All right.
drive to Dickinson, go to a graduation party.